G'day, I'm Paul. So, owning an electric car can be a little bit confusing, so I thought let's make a video about the basics of owning an electric car and the stuff you need to know before you dive in. I've owned one now for like 6 or 7 years, so I kind of know the things to look out for. So in this video, we're going to cover things like battery technology, what it's like to drive an electric car and how it's different to a sort of standard internal combustion car. We'll also cover charging, the different types of charging you have available, what you can do at home, also some of the tax benefits, and finally the servicing and app benefits as well. So a fair bit here. You can skip ahead to any parts of the video using the time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you've got chapters below. But let's hop in the car. We're going to go for a drive to a DC fast charger, and I'll run you through some of the driving differences to start with. Okay, we've just hit the road in the iX1. I'm going to run you through just all the high-level stuff. You may have already driven EVs before. You might be an EV expert, and in which case you're probably going to know most of this stuff anyway. So if you do already know it, sorry about that. It's probably not the video for you. This is for people who are just wanting to know about EVs, or perhaps don't quite know the intricate details or how an EV is going to fit in with their life. Like I said before, I've lived with EVs now for 6, maybe 7 years. So I've got a good understanding of how it works for longer distance drives, how to charge at home and all that sort of stuff. So what I thought we'd do is kick off with driving an EV. What is it like to drive compared to an internal combustion car? And look, obviously driving an EV, it's a much quieter experience because you don't have, the whirring of an internal combustion engine under the bonnet. So everything that you do is just much quieter. And you might think to yourself, well, that must mean that it's quiet when you're driving on the highway and stuff as well. Well, to a degree, you don't get engine noise, obviously, but you still get tyre noise and wind noise and all the sort of standard stuff that you would expect from driving a car at speed. The difference is, though, that when it comes to things like slowing down, instead of you wasting energy through your mechanical brakes, you're actually able to capture some of that energy that would otherwise have disappeared as heat and put it into the battery as electricity. So when I slow down and roll out of the throttle or press the brake, it's actually putting electricity back into the battery. It's not an enormous amount, but it does mean that if you're a long, steep descent, it is basically going to slowly charge the battery. And cars like this BMW have a B mode, or a single pedal driving mode, that basically allows the vehicle to bring the car to a full stop without you having to touch the brake pedal. It takes a little while to get used to, but this is probably one of my favorite features of electric cars. It means that you don't really have to use the brake pedal all that much, and if you're watching ahead like you should be, the car will actually slow down for you to the point where it comes to a stop and you don't have to think about using the brakes. You can still use the brakes if you want, but it just makes life a whole lot easier. The other big bonus of owning an electric car is how immediate the throttle response is. Most electric cars don't have a gearbox, so you just have a fixed gear effectively. And when you accelerate, it sort of punches you back in the seat really hard. And cars like this, BMW, have fake noise that they make to associate with the acceleration. You can switch that stuff off in a lot of electric cars as well. But you're never having to wait for it to move, both from a standing start and while the car is already moving. The second you hit the throttle, it really pushes you into your seat and it gets moving really fast. So there is a lot of acceleration, and depending on what type of electric car you get, some of them can be radically fast as well. So it is pretty exciting when you do actually sort of get on the throttle and have some fun with it. The good news is, outside of that stuff, it is pretty much the same to drive as any other car. There isn't that much of a difference. Once you get used to stuff like regen and single pedal driving, if you decide to activate that, it operates just as any other car does. And that, to me, is probably the best part about these electric cars, is that you don't need to think about anything while you're driving it. We'll talk about range and all that sort of stuff in a second, but just in terms of actually driving the car itself, it is pretty straightforward. Now let's talk about battery types, without going into too much detail, because batteries are incredibly complex. Just the way that they manage storing energy and charging is a really complex topic. So I'm just going to keep it really high level. And if you do want to sort of get a bit more detail on some of the intricacies of this technology and how it differs between these battery types, you can Google these acronyms and you'll get more of an idea. But the main types are LFP. So LFP is probably the most popular type, and you're going to find that on a lot of cars that originate in China, and also a lot of cheaper electric vehicles. NCM, this is probably the second most popular. It's going to be found on more expensive vehicles, mainly because of the energy density, and I'll run through that in just a second. And NCA is the final most popular type. These three really cover the major cross-section of electric cars that are on sale. With an LFP battery, you're basically looking at charging that battery to 100% constantly. And you might think to yourself, why would you not charge a battery to 100%? Well, for longevity of batteries, especially NCM and NCA batteries, you really don't want to be charging them to 100%. You want to keep those at around 80%. You can charge it to 100% for longer distance drives, but for longevity of the battery, that window is sort of between 20 and 80%. With an LFP battery, it's encouraged to charge that to 100%. Now that is the current research, and that is what manufacturers recommend if you do own one of these, and that is what we kind of recommend as well, because that is the manufacturer's recommendation. Now the big difference between these technically is that energy density in LFP batteries isn't as good, and that means that you need to have a heavier battery in a car to drive the same distance as a car with an NCM or an NCA battery. And all that means is that you need to have a bigger battery in a car. It means it's going to be heavier and less efficient, but to the end user, really, outside of that, nothing else really changes. What you'll also find is that with NCM and NCA batteries, you can achieve a higher peak charging speed. So in something like a Porsche Taycan, for example, it can charge at over 300 kilowatts at a charger that is capable of doing that. But excitingly, out of China, we were at the Shanghai Motor Show a couple of weeks ago. Both BYD and CATL, another battery manufacturer, debuted technology that talks about adding hundreds of kilometers of charge per minute to a car, making it effectively the same as a petrol car to fill up at a petrol station, which is pretty exciting to me, and it means that the battery tech is finally getting to the stage where people won't have that range anxiety. Now, enough about the sort of high-level battery technology. Let's talk about how temperatures affect the way that your electric vehicle drives. Now, this is an interesting topic because here in Australia, we don't really, unless you go to the snow or something, have sub-zero temperatures. But if you're over in the States or somewhere in Europe where you are in sub-zero temperatures frequently, what you're going to find is that your electric car can lose up to 40% of its stated range in sub-zero temperatures. Now, it's a big issue because it means that if you are at the snow or you are sort of in sub-zero climates, your range is going to be reduced compared to what you would normally experience. Same story when it is hotter. While it's not as bad, your car will still have less range when the weather is really hot. The optimum temperature is sort of between 20 and 25 degrees, and during those temperatures you're able to achieve typically the stated range and you don't have to think about it too much. So that is just something as an owner of an EV you have in the back of your mind. If it is going to be super cold, you want to deduct a bit from your realistic range to know what you are going to be able to achieve on your next long drive. And if you are wondering why that happens, well, basically a battery needs to operate at its optimal temperature. And if the optimal temperature is around sort of 20 or 25 degrees and you're in sub-zero climate, the battery has to heat itself up. And the only way it can do that is by using energy from the battery. So it means that you're constantly using energy from the battery to keep it warm and keep it around that 20 or 25 degree mark. And that results in you having less range because there is less energy available for you to drive later on. So just something to keep in mind. Not the end of the world, especially here in Australia where 5 degree day, 6 degree day, a cold morning. Yes, you will get less range, but it's not going to be earth shattering compared to sub-zero temperatures. The other thing you're going to notice as well is that while this BMW, for example, has one pedal drive, it has the noises, it's got app connectivity, which we'll run through later on. Not all EVs are the same, and that's why I say to everyone, you've got to be test driving a car for like at least 24 hours. Take it home, make sure your other half likes it as well, because one EV that you like driving like this may not be the same as another one that doesn't have these features. Like some brands, like Porsche, for example, has no single pedal drive, so you're always having to use the brake pedal. And to be honest, it's like an old school philosophy, and I don't know why they stick with that, but it is just one thing to keep in mind that, features that you like in one particular electric car won't be the same in others. So it is really always important to make sure you do that test drive, spend enough time with the car, make sure you're comfortable with it before you do fully commit to actually buying it. Okay, we're just about to arrive to our local DC fast charger. Now, I thought I'd quickly explain AC, DC. Yes, great band, but in terms of the charging world, AC is slow charging. That is the type of charging you'll do at home or perhaps at a hotel or something like that. Whereas DC charging is fast charging, and it's the type of charging that you're going to be doing at a public setting, and it's the fastest way to charge your electric car. Okey-dokey. So, now what you're going to find is A lot of these chargers, they all have different brands, so you're going to find that you have a lot of apps on your phone for the different types of chargers. But over here on the BMW, you've got DC charging and AC charging. So this is a DC charger. Typically your DC chargers are the fast ones. So what you want to do is grab your app, we'll crack this one open, get this, plug this in, and then on the actual charger itself, it'll have a number there, and you just got to find that, and hopefully it starts charging. So we've plugged up here to the fast charger. Now this is called a DC charger. This is the fastest type of charger you can get for an electric car. And it's going to show you some key information here. This is saying there's a 20-minute wait until our vehicle is to 80% and it's started at 55%. So depending on the electric car you get, some will charge faster than others. Now plugs are standardized across Australia, so you don't really need to worry about different plug types. They all use basically the same type here for DC charging. And then once it plugs up and it starts charging, presents you with information on how long it's going to take and basically the charge rate as well. And depending on the electric car you buy, the charge rate will also, either be very fast or very slow, depending on how much you spend on your electric car. Now, the interesting thing as well, fun fact, if you come over here with me and have a look at this, some DC chargers, depending on their power app, would actually have liquid cooled cables. Well, because of the amount of current that runs through these, this actually has a refrigeration unit inside and it liquid cools this cable to ensure it can continue delivering a strong level of electricity even when there is hot weather or cold weather as well. So yeah, very interesting setup. What we're going to do now though is once the car's charged, we're going to head back to the office. I'm going to run you through why this starts slowing down at around the 80% mark and why it takes significantly longer to get from 80% to 100% when you're fast charging your car. So we're back in the office and I thought here I would run you through charging principles, just a high level overview of how charging works and why it slows down right at the end there for the fast charging method. I'm also going to run you through FBT, which is Fringe Benefits Tax, and some of the tax incentives you can get at the moment if you buy an electric vehicle. I also want to touch on the applications that come with electric cars and why some of them are better than others. And finally, I also want to look at servicing and why it is cheaper to service an electric vehicle. Okay, let's talk about charging. This is one of my favorite topics because it is something you're going to do a lot of the time with an electric car. You've got a few different types of charging that you're going to do. Most people who own an electric car are going to want to charge at home. If you can only publicly charge your electric car, I'd probably recommend against getting an electric car for the moment and leaving it until further down the track. Charging at home means that you're able to basically plug in when you get home and have a vehicle that is full for the next morning when you want to drive. And you'll find that most of the time you're not going to be stressing about range or whether your car has charge in it because you're just plugging up when you get home. That's going to require charging infrastructure at home. This can be as little as $500 to $1,000, or it can go up to anywhere higher than that, depending on how far you need to run power from your switchboard to where the car is located and how fast you want that charging to be. Don't think for a second that you're going to be able to charge at 25 or 50 kilowatts at home on a DC charger. Running DC charging infrastructure to your home is going to be way too expensive, and there really isn't much of a benefit because you're always going to be leaving your car at a garage overnight, most likely, or in your driveway overnight. More than enough time for it to charge on a fairly decent AC charger. So I'd budget around sort of $2,000 to have charging infrastructure installed at home. Some brands will offer this as an incentive when you're buying an electric car, so keep that in mind. It might just be something that comes with your electric car. You won't need to fork out, but typically, even if you are supplied with a charger, you're going to have a qualified electrician come and install your charging infrastructure at home, and then it can perhaps interact with your solar or whatever other system you have running. I'd always recommend also having a look at energy plans that offer you discounted charging overnight. So there are a number of plans that will do discounted charging between midnight and 6 a.m, for example. There's even one plan that will do free charging between like 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. So if your car is at home, simply schedule it in the app to charge during those two windows. If you are charging at home, it's going to take you anywhere from 24 hours to maybe 4 or 5 hours to charge a car, depending on how fast your charging infrastructure is, and also how low your battery is when you plug it up. If you are plugging it up most nights, you're not going to have that issue, but if you've been on a long drive, you come home with a low state of charge, you want to allow a bit more time to charge the car. Now I wanted to run you through DC fast charging and why the optimum charging window is between 20 and 80%. Yes, you can leave your car plugged in at a fast charger, a public charger, to go from 80 to 100%, but it is going to take a long time. you are typically getting the fastest charging speeds between that sort of 0 and 80% window, or 20 and 80% depending on where you are. There are a few reasons for that, and I'll try and keep it as simple as I can using an analogy with filling a glass of water. If you roll up to a tap, you fill your glass up as fast as you can. If you didn't switch that tap off as you got close to the end, the water would overflow and it would go absolutely everywhere. So typically what you do is you start filling it very fast, and as you get closer to the end, you start slowing the tap down so the water doesn't overflow. Charging a battery is the same. It's able to charge at a high speed right at the start, but it has to slow down at the end. And that's because of voltage differences. So lithium-ion batteries charge fastest when they're at a lower state of charge, that is a lower battery percentage, because the voltage difference between the charger and the battery is higher, so it allows more current to flow. As the battery fills up though, and its voltage rises, the reduction in the difference makes it harder for it to top up fast. And right when you're getting closer to the end of that battery charging, the vehicle uses its onboard battery management system to level out all of those cells so they're at the same voltage. This allows the battery to last longer so you can keep charging it fast, and it also means that the battery isn't going to overheat and have heat problems as it is fast charging. And that is why you're going to see a big difference in the speed of charges depending on the price of the car. Cheaper cars tend to charge slower because they don't have that sophisticated battery technology. They don't have the sophistication levels in the battery management systems. But more expensive cars can charge much faster and also complete that charging process quicker because they do use much more expensive onboard charging equipment to manage those battery voltages. So that is a bit of an idea of why you can't just go hell for leather all the way up to 100%, and why you're kind of wasting your time if you try and charge your car past 80% on a fast charger. You're better off just driving so that you can get to the next charger and do a shorter charge between 20 and 80%. Now let's talk about Fringe Benefits Tax. I know this is boring stuff, but if you do want to save a bit of money, and by the way, this is not financial advice, you're going to have to get your own financial advice here. A lot of employers allow you to do novated leasing. And with novated leasing, typically you have to pay what's called Fringe Benefits Tax. And novated leasing is where you're paying for a vehicle and its running costs pre-tax. So it effectively reduces the amount of tax you have to pay to the government because your overall annual income reduces with these car payments. And because the government wants to get some of that money back, they charge you Fringe Benefits Tax for any benefits you get as an employee by reducing your tax. Now the government, because they wanted to increase the sales of electric vehicles, they allowed you to get an FBT exemption for electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. The plug-in hybrid electric vehicle FBT exemption is over now, but you can still claim the FBT exemption if you're doing a novated lease with a fully electric vehicle. And the benefits of that is that you won't have to pay that tax to the government, and all of the payments you make towards your car, the running costs, all come out of your pre-tax salary. So if you earn $100,000 a year and your car costs you, let's just say $10,000 or $15,000 a year, it effectively reduces your taxable income by $10,000 or $15,000. And as a result of that, you pay less tax to the government. And that in effect reduces what your car actually costs you to run day in, day out. So it's a fantastic option if you A, are going to buy a car anyway, and B, you were going to finance your car as well. Where it becomes a little bit murky is if you're going to pay cash for your car. Sometimes it is better to just pay that cash instead of entering into a loan agreement where typically you're going to have to pay higher interest rate costs. That is one thing you definitely want to look at. So like I said, not financial advice, but definitely have a chat to your accountant and see whether you buying a car through a novated lease through your employer to get that FBT exemption is actually going to be a benefit. A lot of you may find that it actually is. Now let's talk about servicing. This is one of the benefits, again, of an electric vehicle. When you look at an electric car and how many moving parts it has significantly less moving parts within its structure than an internal combustion car. The net result of that is that servicing is cheaper, and that is because you don't have to do as much work to that vehicle. Don't get it in your mind that you don't need to service it. And this is probably one of the things that I find most frustrating with Tesla, for example. A lot of people have in their minds that you never need to service a Tesla. That is absolutely not true. You still need to be doing tire rotations, balancing your wheels, wheel alignments. These are all key things that need to be done regardless of what is driving your vehicle. You still need to be looking at brake pads and rotors and making sure that all of your suspension components are still within their lifespan. You don't want to just leave these things because they can become problems over time. So that is why having a regular service interval, by having someone look at your vehicle and make sure that all of those components are fine, is going to be the best option if you own an electric car. Companies like BMW, for example, they allow you to prepay for servicing in advance, which is a cheaper option. And typically servicing an electric car compared to an internal combustion car will not only be quicker, but it is cheaper as well. So that is one of those benefits that you're going to have with owning an electric vehicle. But just do not fall into the trap, regardless of which brand that you buy, into thinking that you never need to service one, because that is absolutely not the case. Let's talk about apps. This is the thing I love the most about electric cars. Because you're going to have to spend time charging your car, whether you're at a public charger or whether you're charging at home, and that is where most people are going to be charging. You want to have an app that allows you to schedule charging so you can take advantage of off-peak charging. An app also allows you to preheat the car. So if it is a cold morning like it is at the moment out here in Melbourne, you want to be able to preheat the car so that instead of it being 2 degrees inside the car when you hop in, it can be a balmy 20 degrees. Your windows can be defrosted. All of that stuff can be managed through an app. And all apps vary between brands. Some, like Tesla's app, is fantastic. BMW's app is typically pretty good. Some brands, like the Volkswagen Group, have very, very average app experiences. And to me, if you are buying an electric car, you want to make sure that the app that comes with the car is excellent, because it will completely change your life. One of the things that I love the most about some of these apps is being able to delegate control in terms of the vehicle key. So for example, if you need to let your mate drive the car, you don't want to have to give them a key. They could turn up to the train station where your car is, or the pub where you left it the night before. You can delegate access to the car, and it means that that person can then drive your vehicle without needing a physical key. And that is a massive advantage and makes life much easier. Those cars are always connected, and it means that unless you are in like a very underground car park with no phone reception, you can always connect into the car. The other one is security. Some of these car brands, like again, BMW, Tesla, for example, allow you to take security measures with your car. So you can take a snapshot of outside the car, you can view video footage of outside the car live. Someone breaks into your car, it can record both inside and outside. So you have a lot of options there in terms of making sure your vehicle is secure and that you can always keep tabs on where it is, who is around it, and who has broken into it if unfortunately that ever happens to you. So can't stress the importance of that. Yes, it is great to have a car that drives well and is easy to live with day to day, but have a think about the ownership experience and the advantages of having a decent app that will make living with the car much easier longer term. So I hope you found this video useful. I've tried to run over as much as I can here based on my experience owning electric cars before. If there's anything that I've missed, let me know in the comments section below. For most people, owning an electric car isn't going to be all that difficult. You're going to charge at home. It will be compatible with your lifestyle most of the time. If you're towing, if you're doing regular long distance driving, an EV probably isn't for you, or you want to have a second internal combustion car that's able to bridge the gap there between the two. But for most Australians, an EV is going to cover the day-to-day driving that they do with fairly little hassle if you plan it out and understand the limitations of battery range when it's cold, and also charging infrastructure that often doesn't work if you're relying on public charging infrastructure. So let me know if we've missed anything in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. But until next time, take it easy.